Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump is visiting the greater Cincinnati area this afternoon, touring pharma facilities in Kentucky and Ohio. He will speak later about lowering prescription drug prices. Member countries in the International Energy Agency agreed to release 400 million barrels of oil from reserves, the latest emergency stockpile release in the agency's history. Iranian oil still flowing to China through the Strait of Hormuz despite the war, while analysts say China may be sending military support to back Iran. The Wall Street Journal reports that the Justice Department is investigating whether Iran used Binance to evade U.S. sanctions. The cryptocurrency exchange announces a lawsuit against the journal's parent company over a previous report. A new inflation report is out today, showing price pressures holding steady in the U.S. economy. At least 2 people are dead after tornadoes pummeled the Midwest. Parts of Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio remain under tornado watch.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. Amid the war in Iran, the International Energy Agency, or IEA, has agreed to release oil from its reserves. And this is due to market disruptions. Here's more.
IEA countries have unanimously decided to launch the largest ever release of emergency oil stocks in our agency's history. IEA countries will be making 400 million barrels of oil available.
It's more than double the level released at the start of the Ukraine war 4 years ago. The IEA says it will provide more details about the release soon and continue to monitor the market situation. The agency says a return to stable flows of oil and gas still depends heavily on safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. Oil prices dropped following the agency's statement. The IEA has 32 member states, mostly developed nations. They hold more than 1 billion barrels in reserves. Germany and Austria say they're releasing parts of their reserves. Japan also saying it will release some of its reserves starting Monday. And leaders of G7 countries are meeting online following the announcement from the IEA. French President Emmanuel Macron chairing the video call. Leaders of the UK, Italy, and Germany, as well as EU officials, can be seen attending. Macron says 400 million barrels of oil represent 20 days' worth of volume that normally moves through the Strait of Hormuz.
An update on the Thai ship that was struck today in the Strait of Hormuz. 20 crew members have been rescued after the vessel was hit by unknown projectiles. Here's more.
But 3 crew members remain missing. Images released today by the Royal Thai Navy show a cargo vessel engulfed in black smoke while lifeboats float nearby. The incident happened off the north coast of Oman. Thailand's transport ministry said an explosion occurred in the stern of the ship and caused a fire in the engine compartment. 3 ships in total were hit today in separate incidents. Besides a Thai ship, a bulk carrier was hit by an unknown projectile in the Persian Gulf. The crew is reported safe, and a container vessel also reported damage from an unknown projectile. Iran has warned that any ship passing through the Strait of Hormuz will be targeted. Meanwhile, U.S. Central Command is urging civilians in Iran to immediately avoid all port facilities where Iranian naval forces are operating. CENTCOM said the Iranian regime is conducting military operations at civilian ports. Under international law, civilian ports used for military purposes lose protected status and become legitimate military targets. CENTCOM warned Iranian dock workers, administrative personnel, and commercial crews to avoid Iranian naval vessels and military equipment.
The U.S. military confirming that Iranian missile and drone attacks dropped sharply since the opening phase of the joint U.S.-Israeli strikes. Here's CENTCOM Commander Brad Cooper in a video message this morning.
To date, we have struck more than 5,500 targets inside Iran, including more than 60 ships, using a variety of precision weapon systems. Just yesterday, we had strike waves nearly every hour from different locations and directions going into Iran. We also took out the last of 4 Soleimani-class warships. That's an entire class of Iranian ships now out of the fight. I'd characterize our strikes as being unpredictable, dynamic, and decisive. Since the first 24 hours of this campaign, Iranian ballistic missile and drone attacks have dropped drastically. But it's worth pointing out that Iranian forces continue to deliberately target innocent civilians in Gulf countries while hiding behind their own people as they launch attacks from highly populated cities in Iran. Of course, forces executing Operation Epic Fury aren't just defending against Iranian threats. We are methodically dismantling them by hitting Iranian missiles and drones, as we also strike their defense industrial base. Just last night, our bomber force hit a large ballistic missile manufacturing facility, as an example. So it's not just about what's shooting at us today, it's also about eliminating the threat in the future.
U.S. and Israeli officials say their attacks have severely damaged Iran's missile and drone capabilities and have decapitated parts of Iran's leadership. Officials say the goal is to end Iran's ability to project force beyond its borders. Meanwhile, Iran today firing missiles and drones at targets across the Gulf region. Strikes include oil infrastructure in Saudi Arabia and a ship off the coast of the United Arab Emirates. And 2 Iranian drones hit near Dubai International Airport today, wounding 4 people, though flights continue. The Pentagon says the U.S. military destroyed 16 Iranian mine-laying boats near the Strait of Hormuz. According to Central Command, those boats were part of a larger group of Iranian vessels eliminated by the U.S. U.S. Central Command posting a video yesterday on X showing strikes on the vessels. The post says U.S. forces eliminated multiple Iranian naval vessels on March 10th, including 16 mine layers near the Strait of Hormuz. Nearly 1/5 of the world's oil travels through the Strait of Hormuz. In a post on Truth Social earlier, President Trump warns that any mines laid in the strait by Iran must be removed immediately, threatening military consequences if Tehran fails to comply. Romania's president says the country will host U.S. refueling planes, surveillance, and satellite communications equipment amid U.S. strikes against Iran. The Romanian parliament is expected to approve the measure later today. Romania is also home to the Aegis ballistic missile defense system. The U.S. deployed the interceptors a decade ago to counter potential threats against NATO allies. The Romanian president's announcement follows the U.S. withdrawal of 1,000 troops from an airbase in the country last year. Another 1,000 U.S. military personnel remain in Romania. About 3,500 NATO troops are also stationed in the country. The State Department says tens of thousands of Americans have made it safely home since the war against Iran began. Here's what the situation looks like on the ground.
The State Department says over 43,000 Americans have safely returned to the U.S. from the Middle East since February 28th. The department says it directly helped nearly 30,000 Americans come home.
Well, those charter flights are running continually. As I said, we've had over 24 leave the region. Those charter buses are also operating from areas where that airspace is closed or a charter flight is not an option. We're also seeing commercial options that are available that some Americans are choosing instead. The task force is constantly identifying those specific individuals with those specific travel options.
The State Department says there are more than enough charter options for Americans in the region, and that its charter flights continue to operate with less than 40% occupancy on average. It says its 24/7 task force has directly assisted tens of thousands of Americans, offering security guidance and travel assistance. Though the State Department says many Americans are relying on commercial flights to leave the region, those options are becoming more limited. British Airlines announcing yesterday it was canceling all flights to and from Abu Dhabi until later this year. The company has also canceled flights to Tel Aviv, Amman, Bahrain, Dubai, and Doha until tomorrow. Several countries have made repatriation plans as commercial flights get grounded. The European Commission says it is coordinating repatriation flights as more member states request help. The EU has supported so far more than 40 flights, bringing over 4,000 Europeans back to their home countries. The French foreign minister says several repatriation flights for French nationals were planned from earlier this month. An estimated 400,000 French nationals are in the region. Dozens of travelers are also back in Europe after being stranded aboard a cruise ship in the port of Dubai.
There was a lot of fear, but they treated us well on board, better than well. But now that's enough. I don't want to hear about bombs or anything else. I just want to go home, and that's it.
On Sunday, the first Japanese charter flight landed at Tokyo's Narita Airport from Oman with 107 Japanese citizens on board. Global air travel remains severely disrupted as Iran continues to strike its neighbors in the Middle East.
And we're bringing in our next guests. Joining us now is Adam Hardage, Special Operations Combat Veteran and former CIA Operations Officer. And we have geopolitical strategist Darren Gobb. He's a retired lieutenant colonel who served in the U.S. Army as a Black Hawk helicopter pilot and battalion commander. So good afternoon to you both. Adam, may I start with you today? So ABC reports that the FBI recently warned California police departments that Iran could launch drone attacks on the West Coast in retaliation to the U.S. Can I just get your overall thoughts right now on this development?
Yeah, I'm not sure what specific information they're acting upon, but I will say that based on everything that I've seen about modern warfare and the continued development of modern warfare, what you're in essence seeing is the democratization of lethality down to a very low level where, frankly, that technology is being perfected and has kind of been perfected over the last few years in Ukraine, where you've been watching almost going back to trench warfare from World War I because a battlefield was not able to be crossed by either opposing forces. So I would not be surprised if there are bad actors that get their hands on lethal drone capability. It's certainly not expensive, and as long as they can have the drone is the delivery vehicle, and as long as they have the actual explosive ingredients themselves, and it's not a big stretch of the imagination for them to get there.
So, Colonel Gobb, let me go to you now. Can the U.S. defend efficiently against potential drone strikes on the West Coast?
Well, they can. Probably not as good as many people would like, just because it's impossible to defend against drones perfectly with the amount of airspace and land that we have. Fortunately, 20 years ago, I spent a lot of time in this arena and predicted this exact threat to the homeland from cartels and from the ocean and many other entities, saying that our forces deployed in our homeland was susceptible to drone threats for a variety of reasons and from a number of people. So I've been writing about this exact scenario for the last 20 years or so. So I know Homeland Security and the Department of Defense have been well warned about this, and there are technologies and systems that are very effective against drones. It's just a matter of what kind and what volume they would come in. So this is not something that that would keep me up at night. It's worth acknowledging the threat could be real, but I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time being extraordinarily concerned about it affecting a person's daily life. Vigilance as always, but fear never.
Okay, so Adam, the colonel says it wouldn't keep him up at night. Let me talk to you about another concern here, about sleeper cells. Talk to us about this. Could they be activated by the Iranian regime in the United States? How are you looking at this situation in particular?
Yeah, the whole notion of sleeper cells, I believe, gets a little bit overblown and a little dramatized in government circles and in the media. I do think that there is a significant part of the diaspora here, the Iranian diaspora, that is very happy that we have overthrown what is a fundamentalist, regime that's been controlling the country for 47 years. But that's not to say that that Iran would not have the ability to activate, partisan groups which are loyal to them, whether through physical violence or protests or anything like that. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if we see some sort of low-level activity that would result in potentially some kind of a kinetic operation, but I don't foresee that as being a major threat as far as something on the scale of, let's say, 9/11 or something like that.
So, Colonel, is the concern over sleeper cells overblown in your opinion?
I think it can be, just because the human imagination takes something like this and automatically assumes, like Adam said, that the 9/11 style picture on your computer screen or your TV screen. So I think it's, again, and one of those things that we have to acknowledge can be real, and that those people most certainly are here because they were in Venezuela. They worked their way through Mexico to our border. But again, this goes straight back to Vigilance is warranted, but again, it's not something that I'm going to lose a lot of sleep over. But we do know that they're here. I've got documents from the people who were working some of this down in Mexico that show large amounts of single fighting age males, both Iranians and Chinese, that moved into the United States. So amongst all of those, you may have 1 out of 1,000 or so people who are part of a quasi sleeper cell or something like that, it's worth noting that threat. But again, most of us can go on with our lives and probably never have to experience anything as a result of that.
Okay, understood. So Adam, a few more things that we have to talk about today. We're seeing reports of the Islamic Republic Guard Corps claiming responsibility for striking 2 vessels in the Strait of Hormuz this morning. It also says it has full control of the strait. Your thoughts on this situation? Is that the case?
Yeah, I think that's more of a narrative war because, in warfare, the first thing to go is going to be the truth. That's the first casualty of pretty much all war. And war is, it's the deception, it's diplomacy through violence, it's all manner of things. So what ground truth is there? I think it's really best explained at the end of the day by how much shipping actually occurs through the strait. So I think the best way to cut through and figure out what ground truth is how many vessels are able to move through there. I've seen reports that several have been hit with explosive devices of some kind, unknown. So I would imagine some form of drone attack on vessels. But I know that the president is also moving U.S. resources to the region in order to defend that. And then one other piece I would say that was interesting was when you saw the cancellation of insurance policies by Lloyd's of London, and then the president moving quickly to have the Development Finance Corporation step in and fill that gap. So obviously, the president's objective is to keep commerce moving, to keep trade going, to keep the oil flowing. And people might have a negative opinion on, oil isn't that important, but that's just not the case because it's everything from, the gas in your car to the heat in your home. It's a critical resource. So obviously the Strait of Hormuz is a strategic and must be open, transit zone.
So, Colonel, Iran says it has control of the waterway. How much of that can they actually back up with real action?
Look at how much they're already backing up with real action in regards to their ability to dominate the Middle East and Central Asia. They're at a war on words, as Adam mentioned too. It's a narrative piece. So everything that is said, it has to be followed up with action, or what they say doesn't mean much. So that is really the measure. It is, as stated, how much is going through the straits. It's how much can Iran affect the Air Force, the airspace over their own country now. These kinds of things. And when you look at the reduction in missile strikes and drone launches and things like that, you're down to about 5% of what it used to be, and that happened very quickly. So their words don't match their ability to take action and make those words a reality. Doesn't make them not dangerous. It doesn't mean we shouldn't be vigilant in all things when it comes to clearing the waterways and continuing to keep an eye on the airspace. And it doesn't mean they're not going to keep launching things. But I do not think you're going to see Iran stop talking like they have been. But ultimately, their effectiveness and the things that we can truly measure are the message you need to pay attention to.
Okay, so Adam, let me focus on this action that Iran claimed to have done, striking these vessels, because President Trump warned Iran against blocking the waterway and probably includes doing such actions. He said, quote, if they do anything bad, that would be the end of Iran, and you'll never hear the name again. I just thought this was an incredible statement. What do you think is going to happen next, then, given the fact that Iran did this?
Yeah, talk about an escalation of rhetoric. Those are pretty serious fighting words right there. I don't think that it's in anybody's best interest, including the U.S.'s, to see broad casualties across the Iranian population. I don't think that is the intent within the administration. I think the intent is liberation, but also we know that President Trump is a very, very very tough negotiator, and when he is willing to use any of the tools that he has at his disposal to achieve his desired end state and outcome, which in this case obviously is regime change, which has already been obviously quite successful. But what comes out of that, whether or not we have a stable Iran that returns to the good times that it was prior to the religious revolution, I don't know. I can't really make much of a prediction there, but I do think that the offensive capabilities and the actions that have been taken have been so devastating towards Iran as to almost have decimated their offensive capability at this point. So it may be a moot point, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay, so Colonel, I very much want to hear your thoughts on this, that President Trump said you'll never hear the name Iran again.
Well, at some point in the future, I'd also like to not hear the name Iran again. I'd love the people to take back their own country and change their name back to Persia. And that would be the reason why I would like to see that. But I agree that the entire mission here, the entire point is not to go in there and create some sort of mass casualty event and across the population of Iran. That would be counterproductive in the first place and not in keeping with our actual goals and objectives. Our conflict is with the radical Islamist so-called leaders of Iran who have a messianic zeal to destroy the nation of Israel, create a lot of problems around the Middle East and Central Asia, and frankly have been coming after the United States for 47 years, even as far as putting Hezbollah into Venezuela and the islands to the north of that location. So what we need to be able to do is really, frankly, remove that dictatorship, provide the people of Iran their best opportunity they've ever had in decades to take back their country and create something free and prosperous. Even if it's short of democracy, it doesn't matter. If it can be a good neighbor and take part in world trade, take part in all things that are important for their own folks, that's what's important. And everything I have heard tells me that that's the goals they're following. Trump can be a little hyperbolic in his languaging at times, but I think he's just trying to make sure that he displays that strength and shares that message directly to the Iranian dictators, but not necessarily as much to the Iranian people initially, although I'm sure they'll hear it and take it as the message it is. And frankly, that's that we're on the side of the Iranian people, but not in favor of their government and their military.
All right, one more subject I want your guys' thoughts on. So, Adam, an exclusive report by the Epoch Times features China insiders saying that Beijing's afraid of this war could spur an uprising, that the Chinese Communist Party officials are scrambling to ensure loyalty, and that internet traffic is being restricted about regime change. And this is according to this Epoch Times report. Just your reaction upon hearing this, Adam.
Yeah, well, I know that China has got a very long-term plan and obviously has been a threat towards Taiwan for a long time. It's a very sensitive diplomatic issue. I do understand that. I would say that the Chinese leadership probably is a little bit nervous about the will of this president being able to and willing to take action against regimes that are threatening either America's interests or America's allies, and certainly Taiwan is one of those. I would like to see nothing but a peaceful continuation of the status quo and even recognition of Taiwan as a sovereign nation.
Okay, Colonel Gobb, your final thoughts on this Epoch Times report that Chinese Communist Party officials are scrambling to ensure loyalty domestically.
Not surprised. I mean, the Chinese economy has been ailing. Now you've cut off Venezuela and Iran from supplying especially cheap oil back to their economy that it relies on so heavily. Chinese people are no doubt seeing this as another strike against their economy again, and a weakening of the regime that's had a lot of internal politics as well that have not helped either. And President Xi may or may not have the power that he thinks he does. So they're going to, keep the fence up around their people in order to make sure that loyalty remains so the regime can stay in place. But there are forces at play around China right now that they simply cannot control. And what they're also seeing is America's military prowess and might in the Middle East. And all of those systems that we just destroyed in Iran are the same systems that Russia and China use religiously and had very little impact on this conflict. I'm not surprised that China's going through this process right now and expect to see more in the future.
All right, you expect to see more in the future. Great conversation from the both of you today. Thank you so much, Colonel Gobb and Adam.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
A new inflation report out today showing price pressures holding steady in the U.S. economy. We have more news after this break. Don't go away.
大提琴不仅仅是一件乐器，它是有生命、有感情的，需要我们精心的照顾。往往我们一个小小的动作，可能都会对人情绪产生微妙的影响。天音的品牌是福星，我们对于传统的理念很荣幸被神韵艺术团选为指定供应商。时间是酿造音色的不可替代的陪伴。我跟大提琴已经有60多年的友情了，每一把琴都有它自己的个性，熟悉它，才能真正发挥它的潜力。所以，我希望给你的每一把琴，都是首先我所信任的。
My 15-year-old son, Ethan, and I had a fun and relaxing morning. We returned home, and Ethan walked to his best friend's house an hour later. I heard the ambulance scream by the street, carrying my beautiful boy. Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. He had zero chance of survival. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox.
How do you feel?
That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
David, would you give any advice?
First thing you do is not keep your ammunition with your weapons, and that your weapons need to be locked at all times.
The annual inflation rate was unchanged at 2.4% in February. That's according to a Bureau of Labor Statistics news release. The 12-month core inflation rate also held steady at 2.5%. That category strips out the volatile energy and food categories. Both readings were in line with economists' expectations. Prices rose modestly for housing and services, while some goods, including used cars and auto insurance, declined. The data was compiled before the recent oil price spike linked to escalating tensions involving Iran as the war continues. All eyes will be on next month's Consumer Price Index report. President Trump says the U.S. will build a new oil refinery with funding from India's largest private energy company, Reliance Industries. The refinery in Brownsville, Texas, will be the United States' first new facility in 50 years. In a Truth Social post, the president called the $300 billion deal historic, thanking Reliance Industries for its investment. America First Refining is in charge of the project at the southern border. The company says when fully operational, the refinery will offset $300 billion in the U.S. trade deficit with India. The company's chairman and founder says the refinery will be designed specifically to process American shale oil. Many U.S. Gulf Coast refineries are currently unable to process light sweet crude oil from fracking shale fields. An individual is in custody after driving a van through a White House barricade early this morning. Metropolitan Police and the Secret Service responded to the incident. The incident occurred around Connecticut Avenue and H Street. Multiple streets around the White House were closed due to traffic and before reopening later. Investigators are questioning the suspect. We'll have more as this story develops further. The race to succeed former Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is headed off to a runoff. A crowded primary field failed to produce a majority winner in yesterday's special election. Democrat Sean Harris will face Trump-backed Republican Clay Fuller in the April runoff. Here's that story.
Trump-backed Republican Clay Fuller and Democrat Sean Harris will head into an April runoff in Georgia's 14th Congressional District to replace Marjorie Taylor Greene in the U.S. House of Representatives. State officials said Harris finished first with just over 37% of the vote, while Fuller trailed closely behind in a crowded Republican candidate field. With no one clearing a majority, the two now move on to next month's runoff, with Fuller favored to win. The race has drawn national attention as it's seen as an early test of Donald Trump's pull in a district that's long been a MAGA stronghold. In 2024, Greene easily won with nearly 65% of the vote. At his election night watch party, Fuller said the results already felt like a victory.
I would describe this as an outright win. We know that the endorsement from President Trump made a difference in this race, and we're going to go and win it. I think it's time that the Republican vote unites and gets a representative to Capitol Hill as soon as possible. But this is a win. This is an absolute win.
Harris, meanwhile, believes he can still break through in the district.
I don't have anything to lose, and the people now know me, they trust me, and they say, you know what? This is the only person in the race that's talking directly to me, talking about kitchen table issues, and he said very clearly that, hey, when I go to D.C., I'm a Democrat, but I'm not tied to a party where versus my opponent, the first thing comes out of his mouth is, I'm going to D.C. to help Donald Trump. When somebody tells you they're going to help Donald Trump, they basically say that everybody else in this district don't count.
The winner of the April runoff will serve through the end of 2026. However, they will have to campaign again for the full 2-year term starting in January, beginning with a May primary that could bring many of the same challengers back into the race.
At least 2 people have been killed after tornadoes tore through parts of Illinois and Indiana. The region saw rain, hail, and strong winds as several supercell thunderstorms moved across northern parts of the states. Local officials say some residents were trapped in damaged homes and had to be rescued. The severe weather left many roads impassable and knocked down dozens of utility poles. Parts of Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio were under a tornado watch this morning. More than 2 million Americans were at a moderate risk of severe weather in Illinois and Indiana. Here's more.
There it is, right there. This is right here, River Road area.
A massive tornado ripping through the Kankakee, Illinois area Tuesday evening.
Everybody, get in, get downstairs if you're out here. Stay safe. People in their cars are crazy. I'm going downstairs now. Hi, guys.
Part of a widespread outbreak of severe weather tracking across the central U.S. overnight Tuesday into Wednesday. Before that tornado in Kankakee, the same tornadic supercell produced a twister near Pontiac, Illinois. The supercell moved east across towns from central Illinois through northern Indiana.
We have an area that a lot of homes and businesses have been hit. Power lines are down everywhere. Injuries so far have been reported as being minor injuries, but the home damage is pretty significant.
The severe weather also included hail, some of it reportedly more than 5 inches in diameter in Illinois, which could set a new state record. Texas also seeing large hail, some of it reportedly baseball-sized. The Lone Star State also seeing at least 1 tornado and tens of thousands of power outages.
The Wall Street Journal reports that the Justice Department is investigating whether Iran used Binance to evade U.S. sanctions. The cryptocurrency exchange announces a lawsuit against the journal's parent company over a previous report. We'll tell you more about that after this break. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure on my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. A few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special T-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did.
Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor during February Heart Month, and your first month's gift will be matched.
Thank you.
My name's Stacy. I'm 57, and I was adopted in 2020.
We were adopted in 2019.
And we were adopted in 2021.
We had a house, and it sounds crazy, but it wasn't a home. The one thing that Jake and Emma brought is it became a home.
When I met Dakota, he had just turned 14.
You weren't there for the first this and the first that. I missed the first words, but we got a lot of other firsts.
Watching her say, oh my God, I cannot believe I got my license. And she's like, I passed. And I'm like, girl.
See them grow. It is.
They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
You and you. Kids in the middle.
What I thought was a complete life was nowhere near complete, but it is now.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
The Wall Street Journal reports that the Justice Department is investigating whether Iran used Binance to evade U.S. sanctions. The report comes as the cryptocurrency exchange sues the journal's publisher over a previous report. The investigation comes after Binance pleaded guilty in 2023 to violating money laundering and sanctions laws. The company paid a $4.3 billion fine and agreed to government oversight. President Trump pardoned the company's founder in October. Binance filed a defamation suit against the journal's publisher, Dow Jones, today over a report published last month. The journal reported at the time that the crypto platform had shuttered an internal investigation into funds that went to a network supporting Iran-backed terror groups. Binance denies the allegations. And amid the war in Iran, the International Energy Agency, or IEA, has agreed to release oil from its reserves due to market disruptions. Here's more.
IEA countries have unanimously decided to launch the largest ever release of emergency oil stocks in our agency's history. IEA countries will be making 400 million barrels of oil available.
It's more than double the level released at the start of the Ukraine war 4 years ago. The IEA says it will provide more details about the release soon and continue to monitor the market situation. The agency says a return to stable flows of oil and gas still depends heavily on safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. Oil prices dropped following the agency's statement. The IEA has 32 member states, mostly developed nations. They hold more than 1 billion barrels in reserves. Germany and Austria say they're releasing parts of their reserves. Japan also saying it will release some of its reserves starting Monday. And leaders of G7 countries are meeting online following the announcement from the IEA. French President Emmanuel Macron chairing the video call. Leaders of the UK, Italy, and Germany, as well as EU officials, can be seen attending. Macron says 400 million barrels of oil represent 20 days worth of volume that normally moves through the Strait of Hormuz.
For more on the International Energy Agency's release of barrels of strategic oil from reserves, joining us now is Michael Busler, economist and public policy analyst and professor of finance at Stockton University. Michael, always great to have you on the show. Good afternoon. So this release is the largest ever by IEA nations. Can we get your overall thoughts, your reaction?
Yeah. So because of the war in Iran, the Straits of Hormuz are essentially shut down. Now, the President Trump says he's going to try to keep it open, but I think 3 British ships got hit today trying to pass through there. So there's a lot of reluctance, and most ships won't go through there. So how much does that hurt? About 20 million barrels a day flow through the Straits of Hormuz. And that's about 20% of the world's total supply. So 20 million barrels a day not getting through, and they released 400 million. So that's about a 20-day supply. So that should help to stabilize prices. And the hope is that within that 20 days, either the Straits of Hormuz will be secured and ships will go through there, or even further, maybe this whole war in Iran will be over. Either way, this does a lot to help keep prices down. Now, it'll take a little while for it to filter through, and we don't know how long this Iran conflict is going to last. But in 2022, they released a little less than half of that, about 180 million barrels when Russia invaded Ukraine, and that did tend to help stabilize prices. So it's a positive move in the short term until this Iran conflict is resolved.
So, Michael, you said this might take some time to filter through. I have some thoughts on that because JP Morgan Chase wrote in a note yesterday, it said once a presidential order is issued to deploy oil from the National Reserve, the Energy Department typically doesn't begin deliveries for about 13 days. And then on top of that, additional shipping time is needed before volumes actually reach end consumers. And the war actually could be over by then. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So the IEA doesn't know, as really nobody does, how much longer this is going to last, this war, and how much longer the straits are going to be blocked. So the IEA says, yes, I realize there's a week or two until we can get it out there, and then we have to ship it, so it's going to take some extra time. But there is a possibility that this stretches on somewhat longer. President Trump's original estimate was about 4 to 6 weeks. Now, we're only about a week and a half in. He seems to be a little more confident that this will end in a shorter time period. But the IEA said, look, I want some kind of insurance here. If it does drag on, I don't want oil prices to go up over $100 or further, driving gasoline prices up. That's such a high price, it will tend to slow down economic activity worldwide. So you're right, this won't have an immediate impact, but should the war drag on, this will be somewhat of a buffer to help keep those prices down.
So can I ask you how you feel about the spike in oil prices? Is this due to sentiment such as fear, or is it due to the physical disruptions? Because when President Trump said the war will end soon a few days ago, we saw an immediate reaction to prices falling. That's why I'm thinking this.
Yeah, so the answer is both. Some of it is due to a supply restriction, and some of it is due to the perception of oil traders that this conflict is going to go on for some time, and prices will end up spiking. Now, oil went up over $100 a barrel Trump said, I'm going to secure the Straits of Hormuz, and it came back down to 90. Last time I looked, it was in the high 80s. And why did it go up so much? It was your original question. Restriction in supply, yes. And two, the perception that this is going to last longer than what even the president originally said. And if that's the case, they figure oil prices are going to go significantly higher, maybe up to $120 a barrel. So I better buy it now, even if I have to pay $100. It's better than paying $120 sometime in the future.
Michael, in your mind, how long would it take for oil prices to normalize to the level before the war started? President Trump said he can end the war at any time he wants it to end. He told Axios this.
So he can do that. His original goals were to wipe out the nuclear program, which they've already done, wipe out Iran's ability to shoot intercontinental ballistic missiles, which that's just about done, and then make sure that Iran doesn't fund any of these proxy groups. So most of that is done. The question is, what happens to the leadership in Iran? Now, originally, the goal was not a regime change, but where we are now, it looks like the only thing that'll work in the long term is to replace the mullahs that run Iran now with somebody who will encourage free and fair elections in the country. Again, we don't know how long this will last, and we don't know what all the timing of all this is going to be, but this is a good first step to try to stabilize it. What we really need to do, Trump needs to get this war over with. He needs to wipe out what he wanted to wipe out, whatever he's going to do with regime change, he needs to do. As a tactical matter, you never say to your other side, well, I'm only going to fight till the end of next week, because then they'll just sort of wait till the end of next week to do anything. So you don't want to tell them anything directly, but we do want to end this conflict as soon as possible. Once we do that, your original question, how long will it take for prices to normalize? I don't think more than about a week or two once that oil starts flowing through. And since there's such a large supply being put on by the IEA, and now all these ships that were held up will go through the straits when the war is over, we could see the price of oil drop down below what it was before this conflict started. So there's a lot of variables here, and we'll just have to wait and see how most of these things play out.
Right, that's right. We have to wait and see. But let me ask you one final thing. And I want to circle back to our initial topic here of oil releases. Now, we had a guest on yesterday who said the U.S. shouldn't be releasing oil from its strategic petroleum reserve, especially, as he put it, the reserve has been reduced due to the previous administration releasing oil to lower prices. Can I just finally get your view on this?
Yeah, I wouldn't release any more either. It's about at half. I think it's about 400 million barrels there, and it's just over half of what we're supposed to have. President Trump, when his first term in office, when oil had dropped down to $20 a barrel or less, he filled the whole thing up. So it was very inexpensive for us to get our oil reserve up to where it should be. President Biden, mostly for a political move, wanted to get the price of gasoline down before the midterms in 2022. So he ended up releasing a lot of that, and now we haven't put it back. Oil's a little expensive now. You don't want to put it back when you have to pay $70, $80 a barrel for oil. But when the price comes down and things normalize, then you want to replenish that. We need that there in case of an emergency. We only have a little over half. If something really terrible happens and we need to pull it out, it's not going to be there. It's made to be there for emergency purposes. Having gas prices go up is not an emergency that we should use that for.
Okay, well said, Michael. Always enjoy speaking with you. Thank you for your time.
Always my pleasure.
Iran continues to send large amounts of crude oil through the Strait of Hormuz to China, despite the ongoing war. According to tanker trackers, nearly 12 million barrels of Iranian oil have passed through the critical waterway since the war began. Here's more details on that.
That includes a supertanker carrying 2 million barrels on Monday. Ship trackers show that some vessels have successfully navigated the strait by registering as Chinese-owned with Chinese crews. Others report similar arrangements or protections, including Turkish ships. Analysts suggest Beijing may have reached a deal with Tehran in exchange for petroleum, supplying Iran with military equipment and intelligence. Iranian ships recently departed from the Gaolan port in southeastern China. The Washington Post reporting that Gaolan is a loading port for chemicals, including a key precursor for solid rocket fuel that Iran needs for its missile program. Iran has also shipped gas and oil products, with at least 11 other tankers reaching China since February 28th.
The Trump administration says it's reopening global entry at U.S. airports today. More on that after this break. Stay with us.
They tried to silence us. But 5,000 years cannot be erased.
A lost world reborn. Timeless. Divine. Witness the revival. Experience the extraordinary. Live on stage. Returns to David Koch Theater, March 25th through April 12th. Get your tickets now at shenyun.com.
At Mathis Home, we have your style in stock now during the Spring Style event. Whatever you're looking for, we have what you need for your perfect bedroom. This plush queen upholstered bed is a great example. It's a hot buy at just $5.99. From traditional to modern or anywhere in between, we can help you find the matching pieces and accessories to fit your own personal style, all at great values. Come find the look that's right for you during the Spring Style event at Mathis Home.
But we were hit probably less than I thought, and we'll be back on track in a pretty short while. Prices are coming down very substantially. Oil will be coming down. That's just a matter of war. That happens you can almost predict it. I would say it went up a little bit less than we thought. It's going to come down more than anybody understands. Do you have any questions, Peter?
Yes. You just said it is a little excursion, and you said it is a war. So which one is it? Well, it's both.
It's both. It's an excursion that will keep us out of a war, and the war is going to be. For them, it's a war. For us, it's turned out to be easier than we thought. But think of it, they had thousands of missiles, 7,000, 8,000 missiles. We got many of them before they got to launch. They have drones all over the place. We got many. Now we're knocking out the drone plants, as you know, going fast. They started talking about mines, so we hit 28 mine ships as of this moment, 28. Using the same weapon, the exact same weapon that we use against the drug dealers in the water. We have, as an example, we had tremendous drugs pouring in through the waters, through the sea, and now we have almost none. It's down 97% through water. Now we'll do it through land. The land is easier than water. But this is a great honor being here. It's a great company. I've known it for a long time, and you have done a fantastic job. And I'd like to congratulate you.
Thank you. It's the colleagues' work.
See the colleagues. Talk to them in a second. It's a new form of visit. It's everybody, my associates, my colleagues. What about people that just work for you? No, right? They're colleagues.
25 years working together.
That's why it's doing so well. Congratulations. Great company. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great honor. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Gentlemen, we thought it would just be good to introduce some of our best
let's go.
People in our team and have you have a chance to say hello to
Well, let me have a picture with them. How about that?
That's great.
Come on, Peter, take a picture. Come on. Let's go. Let me get alongside some really good-looking people. All right, let's go. There you go. This guy here, Pulitzer Prize. Nobody.
And you were just watching President Trump at the Thermo Fisher Scientific Facility in Cincinnati right now. He's expected to highlight efforts to lower prescription drug prices. And he was just taking reporter questions just now. And one reporter asked him whether this is a war or an operation. And President Trump responded to that question saying, this is actually both. It's both an operation and a war. President Trump says that for Iran, this is a war. For the United States, this is actually, it turned out to be easier than we thought. And as you can see now, President Trump at the facility, he's taking photos with some of the people he's expected to meet. And according to a White House note, the president will actually be meeting with several people. And those people include Governor Mike DeWine, Mark Casper, Chairman and CEO of Thermo Fisher Scientific. He's also expected to meet with Mike Schaefer. And Mike Schaefer is the vice president and president of Biopharma Services. Now, as I was talking about earlier, the purpose of this trip, at least one of them, is to highlight efforts to lower prescription drug prices for Americans across the nation. And as well, in addition to that, easing the cost of living for families. And all this against the backdrop of the looming midterms coming this November. And it is significant because the president party historically, more often than not, has lost the midterms, and the president and many experts have said that the president needs to win the midterms, the president's party, and President Trump is speaking right now alongside some of his guests. Let's just take a quick listen to hear what they're saying.
Space patients. We have a variety of therapeutic areas, cardiovascular, oncology, diabetes, that we at the site. When products are difficult here, which means active of the tech piece and the workforce that we're in Cincinnati. We are right
and we're taking this away from
as we try to stabilize the signal here. I was saying earlier, President Trump is doing this, engaging in this trip ahead of the midterms. And many analysts have said, and people I have personally spoken to say that President Trump needs to, and his party needs to win the midterms so that he can carry out his entire agenda for the entire 4 years of his term instead of facing obstacles the remaining two years. Now, a little bit background information. A little bit more information on the facility, but President Trump is speaking right now, so let's see what he has to say.
They're all coming in building many factories, but they're up here faster, and at some time in the future they'll probably be doing a little bit of what you're doing, maybe a lot, but in the meantime they can get here a lot faster by using this great company and other companies like this, but this great company, right?
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you very much. The other thing I would add is we are deeply invested in the community here in Cincinnati. We focus on all of our employees live here. We raise our families here. We're focused on job development here. We partner with local universities as well as trade. In this facility, you have everything from high school graduates all the way to PhDs. Al and I are both examples of a co-op program right out of the university. Thermo Fisher very much develops talent.
And I spent 3 summers in the Queen City. Do they still call it the Queen City?
Yes, they do, sir.
In the Queen City, and it was a great experience with my father. I was very young, and we had a little apartment house here, a little complex called Swifton Village. Yep. And it worked out very well, so it was good. It's always good to get off to a good start, right? We got to do a good start. If you don't do a good start, it gets a lot more difficult. But it was a great experience. I love Ohio. And Kentucky we're going to also, you know. We love Kentucky. And we won them both by a lot. I think we can, absolutely without question, we can say by a landslide. And it's great to be back. Thank you. It's great. Thank you very much. And Dr. Oz is here, one of our real stars.
Mr. President, do you want to share with our buddies at Thermo Fisher about most favored nation pricing and why this is so important to our country?
So the whole world, we were paying the most for drugs. We were paying more than any other nation by far. And I don't mean by a little bit, like double, triple, quadruple. I use it just as a basic example. A pill that would cost in London $10 could cost $100 in New York. And through a lot of talent and Dr. Oz too, and some of his people, they're incredible. But I dealt with countries and with the pharmaceutical companies.